I often wonder if Jesus enjoys taunting his followers with his parables. Now, I know parables are meant to teach, but somehow I picture a smirk on the face of Jesus as he tosses out a new one like a riddle for everyone gathered to wrestle with for a while. What comes to mind is my third grade Clue teacher. For those of you who don't know Clue, it's creative learning in a unique environment. And she would read to us a new minute mystery. These were short mysteries that took about a minute to read, and if we kept our wits about us, would take us about half a class to solve. With a glimmer in her eye, she would watch us work our way from the obvious to the more subtle clues, stepping in every pitfall as we try to work our way to the solution. Our first questions would always seem a bit naive and foolish once we reach the end of our problem. And I truly think she got a laugh out of watching the process unfold each time. Sometimes wrestling with a parable can be lots of fun. Other times, I find myself rather exasperated and longing for the message to be made clear so that I can move on quickly and efficiently. Sometimes I find that the longer I spend with the parable, the closer I get to the wisdom that's contained within. Other times, I find myself taking one step forward only to take 3 steps back, wondering and hoping for another Dead Sea Scroll to be discovered that contains all the answer keys. For now, I, like the people of Luke's gospel, must be patient and persistent, even when some days feel like I'm just spinning my wheels. Now, I'm going to be candid with all of you this morning. The parable of the unjust judge and the persistent widow made me angry at first. It conjured up images of the place that all parents have been in when exhaustion takes over and we cave into a persistent child against our better judgment. It conjured up the helpless cries of all those who, like the widow, have been told that they are less than and do not get the same justice as everyone else. It reminded me of all the heartbreaking accounts that I've heard from friends and parishioners who find themselves struggling with illness or addiction or infertility and have had to endure the harm when somebody has told them, just pray harder, be more faithful, somehow insinuating that they have not been doing so already, or that they have yet to reach some level of worthiness and faithfulness that will make their prayers rise to God's attention. At first glance, the parable holds in it many pitfalls and painful paths that one could end up traveling down when it's taken out of the context of what we know about God's Spirit and God's love. I like to think of these paths as a dead-end paths in a maze that look enticing at first, but quickly and abruptly take us to a wall that sends us backtracking in search of a path that will move us further forward. I like to think of these paths as those first set of questions that my classmates and I would ask when our teacher tossed a new minute mystery our way. The ones that at first seem to gain traction, but then quickly come up short. One such path is to think of God as a judge in this parable, a God who will grant our wishes only if we reach the point of becoming unbearably annoying. Like many parables, Jesus is using contrast here to make a point. If even the despicable judge in this story would respond to the cry of a person who has been stripped of their voice and their power by society, then how do you think that a loving and steadfast God would respond? On the flip side, if we, unlike the widow who is persistent and chooses to continually speak up for justice, just throw our hands up and quit, because the response is taking too long or doesn't match what we think it should be, then when God continues to reach out, will we still be here to receive his love? The story that kept coming to my mind this week as I wrestled with this parable was that of the giving tree by Shel Silverstein. Raise your hand if this is one of your favorite. Now, I'm going to summarize this one instead of reading it because my entire family can attest to the fact that I have trouble getting through this book without choking up. The book tells us of the journey of a boy who first discovers his love of a tree by climbing and swinging from its branches, by eating her apples and resting in her shade. When the boy grows to an age in which he begins to desire money, the tree does not have money for him, but she gives him her apples to sell. As a young man, he returns and wishes to start a family, and while the tree cannot provide him with a family, she can give her branches and her limbs in order for him to make a house to shelter them. As he grows older, he comes back and speaks his desire to travel to far away lands. So she gives him her trunk to carve a boat so that he can sail far away. Finally, towards the end, at long last, he returns as an old man, and all that is left of his tree is a stump. But even then, it is just what he needs to sit a while and to rest. Each time the boy speaks of his heart's desire, the tree gives what she can, and in doing so, is very happy. Each time the boy stays away for long periods of time, the tree grows sad and longs for his return. The tree in this story is my image of God in the parable. Unlike the unjust judge, the tree wants to answer our prayers and wants to hear our cries for help. God, like the tree, will not shower us with money, select the perfect family, clear the paths so that all of our travels run smoothly, or prevent us from those aches and pains of growing older. However, God, like the tree, will provide joy and wonder, nourishment and shelter. He will accompany us on our wildest journeys and will provide our final resting place. Each time we open our hearts to God, he will answer our prayers in ways that might not fit exactly what we've asked for. But that does not mean that he's not listening. His steadfast love will not fail us. And oftentimes, it will be all that we need to take us to the next stage of life. He will answer our prayers not because he wants to get rid of our pestering, but because he longs for our joy deeply. His heart will ache each time we stay away for long periods and will rejoice each time we find our way home. This world is not easy, and often the challenges we find ourselves facing make it hard for us to feel and to have faith that God is still there. We might feel like the widow, whose power has been stripped away, yet continues to fight for justice with the glimmer of hope that she will beat all the odds and be heard. We might feel like the annoying nag as we take our prayers to God over and over and over again. But Jesus reminds us that no matter how many times we turn to God for help, he will continue to shake with joy merely because we have returned, merely because of our presence. Like a tree rooted in steadfast love, God will always be there for us. So the question that we're left with in this parable is, will we lose heart? Or will we also continue to show up for God? Amen.